Alright guys, I said I was coming back to talk about this. I've been seeing this a lot lately. I don't know, I think it's from the livescope thing, or I can't figure it out. But something's come up with the snagging of fish, okay? Like how we should keep or not keep snagged fish. And what they're defining as snagging. And this is the kind of the problem I'm having. Now listen, I'm gonna start this video out real quick. And I'm gonna throw this out there, okay? So I'm gonna go real slow for you guys. We are not talking about snagging fish off beds, sight fishing, bed fishing, spawning fish. I'm gonna keep saying it, okay? Right? I'm only gonna do this one time over this one topic. We are not talking about that. We all know that that's illegal and we shouldn't be doing that. Okay, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about normal fishing, just normal casting out there, reeling in, and catching fish. I understand that there's some people out there that talk about these snagged fish and that we shouldn't be allowed to keep them. They should only be hooked in the mouth. I have a problem with this, and here's my problem. We don't really know what happened when that fish got hooked down there. Like when you were reeling down there and the fish got hooked, like did it hook in its mouth? What exactly happened? We've seen thousands of videos, right? I see them all the time. I have a fish in my tank. I see things that happen in my tank. I see what happens when fish, bass, okay, I'm saying bass, because in my last video, people started bringing up all these other species of fish. In my live scope snagging video, right, where people start talking about all these other fish like spoonbill and stuff. We're not talking about spoonbill, guys. We're talking about black bass or smallmouth, spotted bass, those type of fish that are actually going after your bait. We see it all the time where a fish, it misses your bait. It misses like a perch or a shad, or it doesn't get it all the way, right? Well, that thing is real, right? That's real life, and it still misses those fish. So we can't be perfect when you've got a bait and those hooks are separate from that bait to a degree, okay? So you got hooks down here below what it's actually going after. So it might go like here and get hooked in the bottom of the lip or the bottom of the jaw. It might actually be going out there and getting all of your bait, and your hooks are still free to get them somewhere out here. That's fishing, guys. That is the spirit of what we're trying to do, is cast a bait out there and have a fish attempt to go eat it. Not everything's small like a Ned rig or something where they can get. Even worms, right? Even worms, your hook's not going over the entire worm. And sometimes they grab the back end of it. And if they turn the other way and you set the hook, sometimes you don't always get them in the mouth. But that's really what we're doing. Like, that's the whole reason we're throwing out there is to somehow catch the fish. But here's my biggest argument above everything else. And this is the one that bothers me the most. We talk about these fish that we shouldn't be able to weigh in, right? Say in tournaments, if they're not caught in the mouth. My biggest problem with that statement and that comment is this. If you're throwing a bait out there, let's say a jerk bait. I was going to bring up a jerk bait, but you know what? I have this 8.0 right here. Got this 8.0, okay? We go out there and a big fish, right, comes up there and hits this 8.0 and grabs it just like this. And it hooks it. And you're fighting this fish like this, right? And you're fighting it. It's hooked in the mouth. And within the first 4 or 5 seconds, this actually hooks somewhere else, outside the mouth, right? So now it's hooked somewhere around the jaw, somewhere around the eye, the forehead, wherever it might be. Your second hook gets them. When you bring that fish in, it's hooked on the outside, right? It's hooked on the outside and on the inside. But now what happens if this hook comes out? But this hook stays in there. And now you're fighting this fish. And you have to let this fish go because it's hooked on the outside of the mouth. It wasn't when you first hooked it. It only had this. But as you fight it, the other one finds a way to get in. Well, guys, that's happening all the time. We notice that in clear water all the time, where we're throwing out there and jerk baits with 3 hooks, big topwater baits with 3 hooks. We'll get them in, and I'll have a hook in the side of it. Well, I probably had all 3 hooks in it at one point. I can see that. And maybe 2 of them pop off, and now I have one in the side. Well, we don't think much about it on a topwater because we know pretty well that when it hit that topwater, we're not going to randomly snag it in the side, right? It went for our bait. But now I have to turn this fish back because I didn't hook it in the mouth. Well, I did hook it in the mouth. And so it's very hard to do all this. We have come for some reason into this weird phase in fishing of like not trying to count all these fish that should be counted, or like think too much. Like, I don't think bass fishermen have ever been accused of trying to overthink things, but they're overthinking this. This is pretty simple, guys. You're not out there snagging these fish constantly. And even by accident, if you snag a fish somewhere underwater, like I said in that video, that fish isn't just sitting there minding its own business and a crankbait comes from out of nowhere and hits it in its head and gets snagged. Like, fish just don't live and sit like that and let things run into them. I mean, that fish wouldn't make it. That means anything out there could go catch that fish if it just is dumb enough to sit there. And I'm not talking about like people catch that fish. I'm talking about animals, everything. They don't live out there not knowing that something is going to come around them. It's not all eyesight, guys. They have a lateral line. They can feel things coming. They're not going to let things run into them. So when you get past all of that, you still have this deal where, well, I was throwing a chatterbait and I felt a thump and you set the hook and I got him on the outside of the mouth. Well, look, things like that are going to happen, right? But in reality, I'm going to have on all these comments, and I should have put this first. I'm going to have all these comments where they're going to tell me this story about when this happened and this happened. Now, they've probably been fishing for 15 years, and they have like 5 of these stories. Well, okay, so we're talking about 0.0001% of the times we've caught a fish did this happen. That's what I'm talking about, guys. It's such a low percentage. I've been fishing for so long and caught so many fish that it's not even 1 out of 100, guys. It's way less than that. And so I'm not going out there. That's not a pattern that I'm trying to replicate. That's not something I'm going to count on. That's like, in all honesty, from all of us tournament guys, we can't wait to tell that story where something happened crazy and we caught this fish that we probably shouldn't have caught, right? How we got it cooked some weird way, and it was kind of, I wouldn't say a lucky fish, but it kind of is. It's kind of like, hey man, someone was looking out for me today, but it still went after my bait. 1,000,000% it went after my bait. And you know, most of the time we don't have that story because it doesn't work, or we don't land it, or the hook actually doesn't hit it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times you feel fish hit your bait. Happens all the time. All the time. Like, guys are always talking about, oh, something bumped it. That's going on constantly. And we usually don't hook those fish. It has been bothering me how all of a sudden now this has come into this the conversation. When, guys, this used to not be conversation. We used to look at this in a rational way and go, this is what's going on. But now everyone wants to, I don't know what it is. I'll be honest with you. I don't know why this has come in and is now a topic. And I think it's because I believe livescope has a little bit to do with it. I think it's people not really understanding livescope. And then they confuse that with maybe fish on beds and snagging fish on beds. Like, there's 2 different things. We know a fish on a bed will not get out of your way. That's different. And when you can see it, and when you intentionally try to snag it or accidentally snag it, it's still the same thing. That fish does not move. It is literally protecting the bed. That is different from normal fishing. Normal fishing, that doesn't happen, guys. Okay? And even on bedfish usually won't let you throw a bait in there, like with trebles, and like work it down to it. Like they usually get out of the way too, right? The way people are snagging fish on beds is they're trying to snag it with a one hook deal and having to wait till it gets in front of them, right? It's still like if they threw a bait in there and tried to do it, it's not going to work. Chances are, because that fish, it's a whole different deal, guys. Whole different deal. And I'm totally for that. 1,000% for that. I mean, it can't even be a little bit on the outside of the mouth. It has to be in the mouth. Totally agree. I've been sight fishing forever. It's what I do. I'm a firm, giant believer in that. Right? There's no gray area. Right? It's black and white. If it's not in the mouth, it shouldn't count. You should never be allowed to keep it. Okay? That's an easy one. Okay? Anything you can visually see. But this other stuff, man, guys, this is just fishing. It's part of the game. It's part of it. You're going to get one every once in a while. And you shouldn't be like offended if you do, right? You should be like, hey man, this is cool. Got one. Don't know what happened down there underneath the water that I couldn't see, but cool. Still hooked a fish. It was still probably going after my bait. I don't know what happened, but I got him in. Take it for what it is. And I mean, you do realize, guys, we have hooks on these things. Like, there's hooks. We're out there playing with nature with these hooks, hoping something gets it. What are we gonna do now? Like, tell the fish, like start throwing baits without hooks and trying to coax the fish in and hope it just holds on to the bait with its mouth closed and we get it in the net? Guys, this is really the spirit of what we've been doing is fishing. So let's stop overthinking things. Just get back to normal. Okay? It is what it is. We all know what we're trying to do. No one's out there making patterns on how to figure out how to snag a fish. If that's their pattern, let me tell you something. They're going to have a hard time in life because it ain't going to work good for them. I promise you. One every couple thousand fish, you know, if it happens, which you never know what happens because it's under the water and you can't see. We don't know how that fish was hooked. We don't know if that fish was hooked a little bit in the mouth and then it came free and you got in the side, whatever. So I'll leave you all with that. That's my Monday morning. That's my Monday morning. Let's not overthink fishing, guys. Just get back to having fun. See y'all, guys.